for our sermon. We thank God for His provision, for His providence. Difficult times, sometimes hardship, sometimes, but He continues to make way for all of us. The state of the country, the economy, in spite of that, we are still here in our numbers. So those of us that have probably lived outside Lagos for a while, you will also agree with me that living in Lagos is an experience of its own. I don't think there's any other place like Lagos. So Lagos has its own peculiarity. A couple of months ago, I think 2 months ago, I was go to the airport to pick up my wife's cousin who was coming in. I asked him ahead of time, where will he be landing, MM1 on MM2? Those of us that understand the local airport. He told me MM1. So I was there at least 30 minutes before the ETA. I waited in the car park. 1 hour later, he called me, telling me he had landed, but at MM2. It's okay, no problem. So calmly, I paid, and I started driving towards MM2. Getting into the airport, there was a lot of traffic. The traffic was caused by people trying to go to park at the parking lot. And then remember, he was already waiting. He could see me even driving. He was by the side there. He didn't even have a bag. He just had a knapsack. So you would think that since I was on the traffic, he just walk up and get into the car. I know that is strictly not allowed. So I was telling him, don't worry, I need to get to the car park before you could meet me up there. But reality is that it didn't make sense. I was on a queue, he wasn't moving at all. He was there, all he needed to do was to walk across. And he could see me, we could see each other. But I knew the rule. Sensing his impatience, I said, okay, there are policemen there. Ask them. This is a rule, but this rule is not making sense now. Just ask them if you could actually enter the car. He went and spoke to them. According to him, because I didn't hear the policeman, he said, okay, you can, but cross the road, don't enter from here, pass the other side, then you can enter the car. And he did exactly that. I told myself, okay, this is settled. I wanted to now leave the traffic because I didn't need to go to the car park. The moment I was veering off, some 2 men jumped in front of me. I told myself I knew this was going to happen. So they just said park and they clamped my car immediately. My wife's cousin was explaining to them, the policeman, I knew already from experience that it was a waste of time. I simply asked them, where do I pay? And they directed me. I went there. There were crowds shouting, complaining. I went and I paid and started leaving. They unclamped my car, started leaving the airport. He was still angry. He was like, how can you be this calm in the space of daylight robbery? He doesn't live here, so doesn't even live in Nigeria. How can you be this calm? I was just smiling. I was telling myself, I wish I've always been this calm in this kind of situation. I was just saying that maybe I'm pretending to be who I'm not. But that one I knew it was a waste of my time. If you shout from then to the next day, you will see pay that money. So that is what it takes to live in Lagos. Then you will now I can almost write a book on encounters that didn't make any sense at all in this Lagos. You see that if you're asking yourself, now, as a Christian, how do you manage situations like that? Almost on a day-by-day basis. So we're choosing a topic. I titled it, to react or to respond. To react or to respond. Our text will be taken from the book of Proverbs 25:28, which we will react later. In terms of introduction, I'm not so interested in semantics like that. I'm not trying to start an English class. But I'm more interested in whether you even mix up the words is not my concern. What I want us to understand is that these two things will actually have different outcomes at the end of the day. whether you are reacting or you are responding, in the real world, we give you two different results. So it is not the grammar that is important to me. Reacting is very impulsive, driven by emotional reactions, especially in conflict, immediate, mostly just the last thing you do when you've not thought about it. Very sharp, very quick. Somebody talks to you, talk to the person back, somebody says something, you react immediately. That is what we call reaction. Most times tension will escalate. Most times things will go out of hand. And when you have a bit of time to think about it, if you're asking yourself, did this really make sense? So most times it leads to regret. On the other hand, when you are responding, you're a bit intentional, you are thoughtful, you're a bit deliberate, you're actually processing your thoughts and asking yourself, in this kind of situation, what is the best thing to do? And I told you, reaction is automatic, but responding is a bit deliberate. You pause, you consider, you act with care and wisdom. It is not really a problem that we are wired to react because we are humans. But as Christians, our standards are a bit higher. We are held to higher standards. We are expected to exercise self-control, in everything we do. Therefore, responding reflects more like a Christ-like character, fosters peace and is in alignment with God's will for us. The world throws chaos at you. Everybody, if you go out there, is madness everywhere, right? People try to pull you in different directions. People demanding that you arrive in situations. People want to take you to their own level. The power to remain calm when others will normally explode. The power to stay silent when others will start arguing. The power to walk away when others will want a reaction is what makes you distinct as a child of God. And that is why we are told that we are peculiar people. We are royal priesthood. We are not just like every other person. I don't know if if you've been frustrated when it looks like people don't just want to be reasonable. I don't know how you feel when you feel disrespected. I don't know what you feel when people deliberately misunderstand you or gossip about you or say things that are not just necessary. And they want to pull you into their own trouble, into their own chaos. It hurts, except you're not human. And the natural instinct is for you to fight back, for you to defend, for you to prove that they don't know what you're doing. That's the natural instinct. But in the sermon today, we are asking ourselves, should that be how Christians should actually handle situations like that? Even for non-Christians, there are people who walk through this life easily provoked. The slightest thing gets them to the edge. A disrespectful comment, an unmet expectation will trigger them because they cannot manage the emotional reactions. But believers have been told to strive more, to move away from reactive to more responsive Christ-like behavior, to life problems and life challenges. No wonder in James 1:19-20, the Bible says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires." And so we have an identity that is a bit distinct. We are people of God, and we have rules, we have standards, we have models we are supposed to follow. And Proverbs 15:1 says, "And a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word will stir up anger, even a bit more." Now let's go to our text. Our text is Proverbs 25:28. What does it say? Thank you, Daniel Okon, for that graphics. When I saw it, I said, this is perfect. This is basically what it's trying to represent. It says, like a city whose walls are broken, like you can see there, true is a person who lacks self-control. A man who is easily provoked is a man who has no walls. And when I say a man, I also mean a woman, right? No walls, no boundaries. His emotions are public property. Anyone can walk from anywhere and get you up there. People can just carelessly, strangers, people you don't know, mad people, everybody can just get you up there. Anyone can walk in, press a button, and own you for a moment. You know what own you? They almost like somebody really using remote control on you. They know what they are going to do. They know they will get you angry. They know they will get you mad, and they will succeed because it is, that is how you react to situations. I said earlier, the moment you stop feeling emotions, you are no longer human. So the emotion is not the enemy. Your reactions to the emotion can be the enemy. Self-control is not the absence of emotion. It is refusal to be ruled by your own emotion. No wonder the Bible will ask us that we can be angry, but we should not what? Sin. So when someone insults you and you explode, they win because they succeeded in getting you to behave exactly the way they want you to behave. They are writing a script and you're acting the script for them. You are in traffic, someone just cuts you off, which is normal, right? Your anger will rise. You don't know that person. That person will even just move away and move. But maybe if you're not careful for the next 30 minutes, you are wondering, why exactly should somebody behave like that? They are complete strangers. You may never meet them again. I remember, because I gave a good example, I could also give a bad example. I remember many years ago when I was younger, much younger, on Third Mainland Bridge, somebody just carelessly drove and bashed the side of my car and moved on. I was so angry. I started racing after him. We drove from Third Mainland Bridge to the road connecting Otedolo on that bridge. It was not on the express because we veered up, I veered up too. We followed we followed the Ikosi road. I followed. Yes, is the right reaction actually, But we got to that Otedolo, I kind of, you know what he did? He came out and started begging. I'm begging. I just walked back into my car and started driving home. I was asking myself, so you drove all the way to Third Mainland Bridge just for somebody to tell you sorry? That's why I said in my younger days, I have experienced much worse since then. Trust me, there's no way I would drive all the way on Third Mainland Bridge because someone brushed my car. While we are continuing on this, let's look at something very important. I think I've given a teaching on that before. I want us to reflect on it again. It is called our circle of influence. This concept was made popular by a popular writer called Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He was basically trying to tell us that in this world there are two circles. The bigger one is what we call the circle of concern. Things that normally we should worry about. Things that normally affect us. Because we are human, those things are a circle of our concern. We are Nigerians with the state of the economy, the security of the situation. There is a concern for us. I was telling you the other day that there was something that happened in the course of the week that made me angry as a Nigerian. My daughter came up to me and she noticed I was busy and she was wondering if she would disturb me or not. I said, come, what's the problem? He said, I wanted to show you something. He was showing me a video where a woman was complaining about the girls that have been kidnapped in Para. And that woman was saying that there's a grand plan that this thing will still extend to other southwest like Lagos, like Ilorin, and all that and all of that. She just recognized she's a girl. She just recognized that it's kidnapped girls in a school. And she recognized she's in Lagos and she's worried. Right? I said, but Kaima, those people who can't come here, live in the bush. When we drive to your school, do we pass any bush? And I did all I could, thinking I had convinced her. Well, later on I realized that even before she spoke to me, she was suggesting to the mother that maybe we should relocate to Ghana. Right? Now you will think that because I have spoken, I thought that I have convinced her that this matter had been solved. The more painful part was that 2 days later, my daughter came again and said, because she thought I would become impatient, she said, don't be angry. I just want to talk about this again. That the classmates say, that the father said that those people came to Lekki. And that is advising anybody to relocate from this country. So, see me, now, when I was 12 years, I don't think I bothered about whether anybody was going to kidnap me in the school. Right? So the security of the country, whether I like it or not, is in my circle of concern. But there is nothing I can do about it. The same way with so many other things in my circle of concern, but I am helpless, I can't do anything about it. Then Stephen Covey still talk about the other circle, which he called the circle of influence. He said, just like you can see here, that within here, sorry, this is not very clear, within here there are things that you can directly impact. Your response to things, the state of your mind, how you want to manage your health, response to insults. In fact, you're the one that will decide whether that thing is even an insult, right? He said those things are within what you call the circle of influence, and you can directly manage those things. But we know why the problem is that we spend so much time focusing on things we have no control about, getting our peace of mind messed up completely. And you ask yourself, what can you do? These are the kind of things that God told us that we should not be anxious about, but what? Through prayers and what? Supplication. There is nothing you can do about those things. You worry what somebody is going to tell you. Even your own kids, you cannot directly control what they're going to say. But you want to control what a stranger you meet on the road is going to tell you. I know I've said it many times. I used to be angry about those yellow buses, right? You'll be driving, somebody will park in front of you. I have made a personal resolution because he was making me so angry. When they park, I will wait. I won't complain, I won't do anything. Or keke in Lagos, right? I used to also worry so much about politicians. I don't like the arrogance that somebody will come and be talking in a way that they are more Nigerians than the rest of us. The difference is that you have the opportunity of stealing public fund, money month for all of us, and you now think that for that reason you are a more Nigerian. That, if you're not careful, can make you very angry. But what can you do about it? Absolutely nothing. You cannot control whether people will respect you or not. You cannot control what people are going to tell you. You cannot control how people will behave. The only thing you can control is how you can react. And I think it makes sense that we spend time focusing on things we have what? Control over instead. Proverbs 29:11 says, a fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. In continuation of that, I said there are dangers of expectations. Dangers of expectations. We have a right to expectations. We expect things from God, from our families. When our families, we expect that our families will care about us. We expect that when we go out there and fight the world with the world, that when we come to our family, is our safe place where we will rest, where we will be loved, where we will be cared for. We expect our brethren, will treat us as what? Brethren. In fact, we even expect things from strangers on the road. Because you are driving a car, I will expect that you own a driver's license. And at least you know what? The rules of driving. So I won't expect that it's doing anyhow. These are expectations, and it's completely normal. Nothing wrong with that. But where is a bit funny? Expectation is what you on your own. It's like you wrote a contract. This is how everybody will behave. And in your mind, they have signs that are going to behave like that. And you see that if you think about it deeply, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Is that a bit naive, or is it a bit arrogant that you on your own, you are deciding how the whole world is going to behave? Right? I had a friendly encounter with one of my brothers here. He's in this hall, so I'm not complaining, but only two of us know what you are talking about, right? Somewhere in the course of the month, earlier in the year or so, there was something that happened, and I reacted in a way he didn't think I should react. While I was feeling so justified, I was like, how will you be? What do you expect in that situation? Later on, when we were talking about it later, he was still saying I shouldn't have done it like that. I was still saying, but what would you think I would have done? And he told me, well, you are the one that thought he's not heavy, he's your brother. I was like, wow. So because I said I thought that he's not heavy, he's your brother, you now decide to be heavy. I'm not trying to say whether. I said, okay, maybe later on I will put in disclaimer in some of my sermons, right? So this one, maybe I'll put a disclaimer. What I'm telling you is not what I've perfected. Not that after that somebody will slap me and say that I should not react, that I should respond, right? So you see, we have expectations from our brethren that they may not be able to meet up to. So there are dangers of expectations. We have to be careful about what they're expecting others. Because most times this will lead to what? Disappointment. That's why I thought that somebody should know better, somebody should do better, somebody should understand better, doesn't always go well. In that gap between what you expected and what you eventually get is where your peace what disappears. You carry the weight of what you wish someone would be, and it begins to crush you. That is reaction, right? So that pain is not coming from what they've done. The pain is coming from what you think they should do. You are tying your peace to how others will behave. You expect them to say the right thing, you expect them to appreciate you, you expect them to respect you, and all of that. And when they don't do that, you feel betrayed. And I said it is naive, because how can you possibly on your own start deciding how the world is going to act, how people are going to behave? They don't have that kind of power. And it's a waste of time. Reality is that as long as you're in this world, you meet people that are ungrateful, you meet people that are arrogant, you meet people that are dishonest, you meet all kinds of people. That is human nature. That is how human beings behave. If you start demanding that they should behave differently, you will lose your peace. You'll be handing your peace to the nearest disappointment. That's how it works. So when you learn to see people the way they are, not the way you want them to be, it's easier. You can respond. So if you tie your inner peace to how others will behave, any stranger rudeness can ruin your entire day. Family members' behavior can mess up your entire week. If you start asking fairness from people who don't even know what fairness is, they don't know what fairness is. We are wired to be unfair. You start trying to ask understanding from people who cannot even understand themselves, and you get upset, right? Luke 6:35, but love your enemies and do good and lend and expect nothing in return, and your reward will be great and will be sons of the Most High, for he himself is kind to ungrateful and evil men. That's what the Bible says. Now, what would have been the cause or crux of the sermon? Say the power of the thoughts. Because we're talking about learning to respond instead of reacting. It is a natural human instinct for human beings to react to different kinds of stimuli. If you did your biology, we know that, right? The normal thing we use in cramming characteristics of living things is called Mr. D. Niger, right? In that Mr. D. Niger, the idea is irritability. What it simply means is that if I touch this and it's hot, I'm likely to what? React. I will remove my hand immediately. That is what makes you human. When you're no longer able to identify dangers, that's a problem. Because your brain is trying to protect you from danger. That is why you react. It is very normal for you to react to insult, disappointment, rude comments, and all of that. But the reality is that when you now have maturity, something else is introduced. You notice that between that stimulus and the reaction, there is a gap. There is a space. And that space is where your strength is. It is not pretending that things will not affect you, but the understanding that no matter how that thing affects you, that it's within your power to manage it. The true power lies in the space between what happens to us and how we then choose to respond. As Christians, therefore, we should learn to pause when triggered. That's what we say, the power of the pause. Not speaking, not moving, not allowing our emotions to take control over us. While our first instinct should be calmness, not reaction. I keep saying that we are humans. I'm not saying we should become superhumans. But we can observe our emotions without necessarily allowing emotion to rule us. When anger rises, which is normal, it's not the time to act. When fear whispers, it's not the time to freeze. When shame appears, it's not the time to hide. It's not denying your emotions. It is about learning how to manage it. They are just signals, and they can be managed. So, what can we really do? Maybe you can try this. Okay? In today's world, we talk about AI. We think that AI is magic. AI is not magic. What we've done is that, and without going into technicalities, they're what they call machine learning. You use data to train your AI system to behave in a kind of way. So that data creates an algorithm that will determine what will happen next. We can do that to ourselves, right? We can decide to write scripts on how we can behave in in the space of provocation. You know, we can't get it right the first day, but we continue to master that, practice that, telling ourselves who we are, and we are Christians. And we can't just behave like every other person. That is how AI works, and that's how you can also work. So the next time somebody tries to provoke you, pause for a second and ask yourself, do you really need to give this person control over yourself, over how you feel? Do you need to necessarily allow this person determine how you will live your day? When you learn this, you stop being a slave to your emotions. You stop being pulled in every direction and every circumstance and all of that. And I can tell you it's not very easy. And I keep saying a disclaimer. Just this week alone, I think it was on Monday, either on Monday or Tuesday, I went to pick my kids from school because I had a chance and all of that. Those of you that know my house, I live on the road, basically. You know, while I was driving, I was trying to navigate into my house. Afternoon, okay, evening, maybe 4 p.m. or something, 4 to 5 p.m., somebody has blocked my gate. Now, you are blocking my gate, there was a space in front of you, there was a space behind you. I don't know, I think my house looks like cemetery or something, where you say nobody lives here. You know, I couldn't enter. People were behind me, they were running. I had to clear by the side for them to pass. Then after a while, a man and a woman, I believe to be the wife, walked to the car and then moved. I drove into my compound, I was still pained, you know. And I kissed them down, maybe they didn't know, maybe they knew. I stepped out. I went back to the man, I said, does it make sense that you could block here when you know this is somebody's gate? There was space here, there was space there. The man said, I'm very sorry, sir. The woman there was saying, it was a mistake. Did we not move the car? Okay. I said, madam, I'm not talking to you. I said, please, next time, sir, please make sure you don't park in front of them. Like, why are you being aggressive? I told him, I said, this is time to walk away from here right now. Because I don't know what I'm going to tell this woman. I got into my house. I was still angry. I said, how? It's not the fifth time even. It happens all the time. I've been wondering, is he a setup to know how I'm going to act? So when I got into my house, I was like, you don't know those people. So you're going to allow somebody you don't know to just maybe manage your next 30 minutes. I told myself, no, this is not going to happen. Right? To answer before listening, that is folly. Folly means foolishness, and that is a shame. So when someone cuts you off in traffic next time, when someone does anything at all, ask yourself, will their carelessness be enough to take away your peace? Be deliberate about that and be telling yourself that because you're a child of God, you can no longer allow the world to throw you and draw you in every direction. And in the moment you do this, you will continue to manage yourself better. You continue to see that it's actually possible. You know, you go through a process, but just like a gem cannot be polished without friction, a man can never be perfected without trials. You may struggle about it, but it can actually come to a phase or a time when you're able to manage all the confusion around you. So let us do this because we are Christians. We will conclude. I think I have a minute to go. Conclusion says, the world wants your reaction. Learn to give them a response instead. I hope you understand that. The world wants you to react. Don't react. Give them a response instead. You know, I have listened to the lecture on thermometer and thermostat. You know how a thermometer works? If you bring a thermometer and start checking everybody's temperature here, it will be, the reading will be changing depending on whose temperature we are checking, right? You say, if you are Christians, it can be a thermometer where you meet someone, the person is crazy, you'll be crazy with the person. You meet another person, the person is not making sense, you're not making sense with the person. So your mood, your state of mind, everything you do is dependent on who you meet. We are not thermometers. You know, there's this other instrument called a thermostat. A thermostat has a fixed temperature and tends to bring everything in contact to its own temperature. That's who Christians are. We have standards, we have models, and that is who we will be, irrespective of the madness happening around us. We can train ourselves to start responding instead of reacting, managing our expectations, treating every disappointment as a test of our character, and stop being slaves to our emotions. And when we continually do this, we can indeed be good ambassadors of Christ and influence our world positively. May the good Lord bless all of us in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Chinedu. That's a very great lesson to all of us here today. And if I give everybody opportunity to see one or two things that probably must have faced during the course of us